send the link out? Okay.
Holy crap, take 47. Welcome to Slow News Day Live. My name's Steve Boykin, and I'm here in overcast Boulder Creek, California for the last show of the year. You know what happens here. You know what we do. I'm incredibly stoked today to be joined for at least the moment by my good friend and my co-host from the Free Assange Vigil series, Taylor Hudak. How's it going, Taylor?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. Thanks for hanging in there. We had oh God, like I've been here for almost an hour now, or a little bit more of just Kevin fuckery left and right. I hope that there are people that have got hip to the link and they're hanging out and joining us. Man, I said on the vigil last Wednesday, as we were like giving our predictions for 2020 and whatnot, that as long as things continued to be as absurd as they are, we would always have a lane. And with this most recent OPCW drop, we're seeing that play out in as real a manner as possible, because US media, UK media, any Five Eyes country is just leaving this the fuck alone like it's toxic. And I wanted to get your thoughts on that while I pull up the WikiLeaks.
Yeah, so of course there was another WikiLeaks drop in relation to Syria and specifically the OPCW report. This is extremely, extremely serious. We know that Bellingcat, of course, came out with some reports trying to kind of cover for the U.S. government. We will also be getting into that. But I think even before we get into this, and we've mentioned this on the vigils as well, I love the fact that despite Julian being in prison right now, his organization is still producing awesome work that no other media organization can even touch, can even expose or come close to. And now, like you were saying, nobody's covering this except for Tucker Carlson, which of course has made some people very confused, and they're wondering why is it that Tucker Carlson is able to cover this. So we will talk about the media silence on that and the independent media silence on that as well. I think more people are covering it. I've seen some of that on Twitter. But again, there should be absolute outrage over this.
Will you expect Max Blumenthal and Ben Norton to be all over this? You expect Raina Kalik and Caitlin Johnstone and the people at Consortium News, the people that have been on board with this the moment it happened, said this is a false flag, we shouldn't take the mainstream media's spin on this as gospel truth. But there's got to be more than the people who have consistently been right on this. And I mean, I've been busy, but I'm not really seeing that from like, I don't know, the Jamarl Thomas, Sam Cedar, you know, these are leftist spaces, corners of the internet, and it makes me mad because, you know, it's self-censorship to a ridiculous degree, but it's also fearing to tread where other people have already been simply because it might affect their bottom line.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean, there isn't really any incentive to cover this, only that you should and that nobody else is covering it, and it's the moral thing to do. You're not going to get more likes and subscribers really from covering something like this or things that are like this when it comes to war and false flags, in particular controversial issues. We know, of course, that YouTube is censoring people, but it's really important that people do talk about this. We talk about it here. I know that Jason Burmis talks about this, but we continue to see this information come out. And like I was mentioning earlier, we know that Belling had to backtrack and provide some sort of excuse for it, because we know that Bellingcat is essentially funded by the U.S. government, correct?
Yeah, they're an extension of here. Let me pull up. Um, it might be this one. Caitlin Johnstone had an article printed in Consortium News. Here we go. Um, and this is the money shot, as it were, right here. Before we begin, I should highlight that Bellingcat is funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, which, according to its own co-founder, was set up to do overtly what the CIA had previously been doing covertly, namely orchestrating narrative management geared toward the elimination of governments which refuse to comply with U.S. interests. NED is funded directly by the U.S. government, which means that Bellingcat is funded by the U.S. government via an organization set up to promote imperialist. Almost got through all of that in like one fucking breath too. Imperialist regime change agendas. Bellingcat is also funded by Open Society Foundations, another imperialist narrative management operation. Um, you can't. I mean, like that's where the rubber meets the road. This organization is part and parcel of the U.S. government. They're there to control and manipulate and orchestrate the narrative as it directly relates to regime change. That's who they are.
Exactly, because look, they're in the business of narrative management. If this were false, if these revelations were not true, they would be screaming about this. They would be providing all kinds of counter evidence against it if this wasn't true. But instead, we're getting this sort of wishy-washy message. I have not been able to actually read the statement that they put forward or their report, but I know that basically they were just commenting on the fact that they used sort of vague language, and that was their excuse. But the point is that they would have absolutely made a big deal about this if it weren't true. And that's the same thing with the emails. When the Clinton campaign was saying that, you know, we don't know if I don't know if they said that they don't know that the emails are authentic, but people were saying if these were not authentic emails, there would be outrage about this, and they would prove that and show that this wasn't accurate. And again, we've said it time and time again on our vigils, WikiLeaks has a 100% accuracy rate. There is no reason for us to doubt these revelations and this information, considering their track record is perfect and no other organization comes close to that.
Well, WikiLeaks does what so few of us actually do, and that's they look at the primary source material, they explain it to the best of their ability, and then they leave it alone and let whomever reads it make up their own mind as to what and how they should think about it. There's no there's no propaganda with it. There's no narrative control with it, and I think that's what trips people up, because they're so used to being dictated to as to how to feel and how to react and how to respond to this shit, that when countered with, you know, an organization with their accuracy rate that just shows you the documents and walks away, they're like, well, this can't, there's something off here, I know it.
You know what, a lot of people make that argument too. They say because the material isn't packaged and it's just kind of provided for the public to kind of make up their own mind about it and just kind of published. A lot of people say that's not journalism. Of course it is, because there's a tremendous amount of work that goes behind that information and those documents that are leaked to be authenticated. That's an extensive process, but it's an argument that people have. And Julian Assange always advocated for scientific journalism. And he said that journalists should treat their work as science, and that they should be able to falsify facts that they're presenting in their work. And that is something that we are not seeing from many people. But Julian Assange advocated for that. And I think it plays out very well, of course, because like I said, they've never had to retract a statement.
There's an older graphic novel series called Transmetropolitan, and it's basically like cartoon Hunter S. Thompson 1,000 years into the future, and his misadventures and whatnot. And there's a quote in it where he says, journalism is like a gun. It's only got one bullet in it. But if you aim it right, and you can blow the kneecaps off of society. And that's what WikiLeaks did. It kneecapped empire. It kneecapped global governments. It kneecapped, CEOs who are corrupt to the core and would exert their influence to further punish people. And it shone a light on just how illegitimate and criminal not only government but business, especially when they're intertwined, are. Not that they haven't been that way before, but we, as the peasantry, haven't had access to it. And we can see it with our own eyes. And that's what these motherfuckers are afraid of the most, is us becoming consciously aware and then doing something about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a real fear. And I think in addition to that, there are, of course, disincentives from reporting on this information in particular. But I think what's really odd about this is that, in the past, I believe that all other WikiLeaks were mainstream media for the most part. Many of them were. However, this one isn't being covered at all, only by one person. So that I think is kind of interesting, that this is the one particular leak they're not paying any attention to, I guess, since the other ones were given some airtime.
They didn't pick up the link about what was it, oh god, I've even got it open too, but the corrupt Ministry of Fisheries in, I believe, Oman. But I mean, the last several document drops by WikiLeaks have been just categorically ignored. The difference in the reporting, even on the DNC emails versus the Podesta emails versus Vault 7 versus Vault 8, you just saw a collective freeze throughout all facets of corporate media on the reporting on it. And this, they're treating like it's got the fucking plague.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's also very disappointing to see some politicians, and I know you don't like talking about the candidates, but just real quick, it's really...
It's the end.
No, it's just really disappointing.
There are no fucking rules today. I'm, in fact, on about 3 grams of mushrooms and doing great.
Okay. So what I wanted to say was, I don't know if Tulsi has really come out strong about this, but she was called an Assad apologist and consistently smeared for this. Why is she being silent? Has she made any strong statements about this?
Yo, she should be doing a victory lap with,
right.
Like, I told you so motherfuckers painted on her ass, and she should be shaking her ass in front of each and every news outlet on the entire planet. Like, if anyone deserves a high five for this in the political sphere, it is Tulsi Gabbard, because she was the lone person with the temerity to say, I am not going to go along with the national security state on this. While, her own opponents on that Democratic debate stage were high-fiving Donald Trump over bombing the shit out of Syria.
I know. I don't know why she won't make a strong statement about this. She absolutely should be. And I believe when she was asked about this, she said she wasn't aware of these leaks, or she wanted to get more information on it before she spoke about it.
Well, yeah, that's your MO. That's her MO. That's what she does. She's like, I don't want to make.
She does. You're right. Yeah.
The times that she's come out with like very what are perceived as bold statements is when she already has all the information that she wanted to get, like saying that Julian Assange shouldn't be a prisoner in Belmarsh. You really don't need to spend 6 months on a fact-finding mission to come to that conclusion, in my opinion.
No, well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you as well, of course. So, yeah, no, I agree with you. And the same thing happened with Bolivia as well. I mean, I think it took her like 2 weeks or something, or at least a week before she was able to come out with a statement about what she thought about that. But what I think is particularly interesting to go back to WikiLeaks and how its publications have really impacted many governments. I mean, that one of the first leaks they had that really made them put them on the national stage, I guess, if you will, was when they basically revealed that the Swiss bank was involved in money laundering. It was Julius Baer, and like people were going to prison, and it really was a huge deal. But again, remember, this is in Iceland, where they treat their media and they're more media a lot better, and they're also more accepting of contradictory narratives there, I think, than in places like the US.
Well, Iceland is one of the lone countries that during the completely orchestrated and entirely preventable financial collapse from 2007 to like 2010, Iceland's one of the only countries that prosecuted the fucking banksters that made this shit happen. Like that's their I don't know, claim to righteousness, I suppose. And as a result of that, they have a much better banking system now. They have public-owned banks and a bunch of other measures that they took place to not get caught up in a global financial pyramid scheme like the one that was orchestrated and we were all victims of.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see the different governments' reactions to these revelations. That was really the point I was trying to make, is that we see how Iceland reacted to this. We're seeing how the US has reacted to this. Of course, they, imprisoned the person who created this organization. And then also, of course, we know that the people who have been implicated in these documents have never even been investigated, let alone arrested for their activities. And I don't see that ever happening, unfortunately.
Oh, no. Once Barack Obama said, "Oh, we're never looking backwards. I'm not going to prosecute a single torturer. I'm not going to prosecute a single Wall Street executive. I'm not going to prosecute a no." That gave every further administration a green light to whitewash whatever crimes came before them. And the only reason Donald Trump is trying to expose some of the actual crimes of the previous administrations is because they fucking told him he was Vladimir Putin's asset for 4 fucking years. Like, okay, I gotta make this point.
Okay.
And I think I've only made it once or twice. But if you're watching and you've got some centrist friends or family members or whatever who are convinced that Donald Trump is Vladimir Putin's fucking butt boy, if they're convinced of that, then why would the Democrats that they support give Donald Trump Vladimir Putin's fucking cockholster, as Stephen Colbert said on TV? Why would they give him an extra $131 billion to go make war? Why would they do that for Vladimir Putin? Why would they extend warrantless surveillance of all American citizens for Vladimir Putin? Why? And when you ask them that, they're like, "Why do you support Trump?" Like, that's all they get. That's their default.
Exactly. That's all they can counter with. And yeah, that's all they can counter with. And I do believe, too, that this all made him stronger. I think it made him a lot stronger and more not necessarily more favorable, but I think it just empowered him a little bit and gave his base something to really work with and use against the opposing side here. No. And also, too, it's like, he can't be so dumb and such an idiot, yet he was able to avoid being essentially prosecuted by Mueller. Like, you can't have it both ways.
Well, the Mueller investigation was fabricated. It was fucking, like, at its very core, it was based in our own FBI and CIA's illegal fucking coup that they orchestrated.
And how about all these celebrities that are saying, "Oh, we love the CIA, the FBI"? such great people that work there. And we have to wonder how much they're getting paid to say this.
Well, how else would you keep the FBI off your back for the fucking satanic pedophilia that you're involved in
Yeah.
Hollywood? You've got to
Yeah,
praise those
exactly.
motherfuckers because you've got little fucking kids' lives to ruin. You know, like it, and then what really sucks, and how you know it's all fucking orchestrated in narrative management, the most just reprehensible figures out of Hollywood are the ones that come forward to defend what's going on with Donald Trump. Like, James Woods is a piece of shit. There's just no way to fucking argue that sentence where James Woods is not just a total fucking plastic pants crazy person, you know? But he's the guy. More that's like, oh no, Donald Trump's a white hat, I swear to God. You know, listen to me, I'm going to go eat a live squirrel now. I'm James Woods, fuck off. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's how you know it's all a fucking cartoon. Like, when the most, I don't know, unreliable figures on the planet, not just out of Hollywood, but throughout the media, are the ones that are like, but wait, I have a few facts here, and they come from, like, WikiLeaks, that further discredits WikiLeaks in people's minds, because it's only the most reprehensible figures that are coming forth and showing people the information. That's why we need independent media. That's why we need truly independent media.
Right. And you know what? You make the great point of saying, like, we know the people who are going to be covering this, which is like, Max Blumenthal, Raina Kalik, among others. Like, we know Aaron Matei, we know these people are going to take it upon themselves to cover this. So it's really important that others take some initiative as well. I know you, like I said, I know you do, without a doubt. We'll cover this, Jason Burmis and others. So yeah, it is really important, because this should be, this is extremely disturbing. We're learning in this report that they literally planted cylinders there. All the evidence is saying that these cylinders had to have been placed there. That's extremely disturbing. People should be outraged by this.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point,
but
by the way.
Nobody else.
In fact, when you go to WikiLeaks and you look at it up, that's the very first thing that the OPCW director was like, take this shit out. I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
You have to consider that they were placed there with loving care by the fucking hands of people who would perpetrate a false flag in order to control a natural gas pipeline. And if you don't consider that, you're a closed-minded simple fuck, and you need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture of what's going on around you.
Right, and there's science in these reports is suggesting that this chemical attack, the way it's been presented and spoken about, is not at all what happened. And I always have said, people can lie, organizations can lie, but scientific evidence cannot lie. It is what it is. And it was really important that those levels were at a certain threshold for them to be able to say that this was definitively a chemical weapons attack. And what they were able to determine was that the levels of chlorine in the levels of chlorine were what you would expect to be in the atmosphere, like a normal level. And so I just think that it's crazy that people will be presented with this information and still work their minds to convince themselves otherwise, or at least portray it in a different way.
Well, this kind of falls back on what we ended up talking about at the end of the Christmas Day Vigil. And by the way, Christy Doff is here. Christy, you can come in whenever you want to. We're doing this I don't know, campfire fucking family style. You just show up and jump in. Steve didn't make a plan.
Hey,
He's fucking hiring giraffe pussy on mushrooms right now. So we're just gonna roll with this and have a lot of fun. But wrapping up our Christmas Day Vigil, shit, I just had it and then I lost it. Does anybody remember where I was at?
Hi, Christy.
Hi, Christy.
Hey guys.
We were just talking about the science behind things.
Oh, we were. Well, shit.
Yeah.
I had something for that, and then I fucking lost it.
Yeah.
I might as well bring the leaks up though. But no, you don't hand a fucking backpack to a CNN reporter that they claim is full of sarin gas and be like, sniff this. By the way,
right. She was planted there, of course, and I believe that she has relatives that are. She's a relative of some very powerful people. So I've heard. Somebody reported on this. I can't remember who. I think it may have been Jimmy Dore.
So we're on our 4th OPCW leak. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. Your audio is a little bit softer when you're further away from your computer.
Okay.
We've been having audio issues all day.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to echo what you guys were talking about a little bit earlier about how nobody is reporting on this. And I'm not sure how many drops we need before it becomes valuable, the powers that be, to acknowledge it.
Well, it's not going to. It seems to be that the only time that you acknowledge WikiLeaks exists is when you need to smear the character of Julian Assange or smear the character of Chelsea Manning. Like, and Taylor's right. There was a time where mainstream media would drool over the next WikiLeaks release. Who are they gonna get? You know?
Yeah.
And
now it's not advantageous to have WikiLeaks leak anything because we are in this new realm of we have people on both sides that want this Syria narrative, false narrative, to be a thing, and we don't want the truth of Syria to come out. I feel like both sides of the aisle don't want that. So, of course, they're not going to cheer for WikiLeaks to release anything about it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point of maybe why this leak in particular is not getting any recognition, because it's not of benefit to the left or right to really promote this. But over time and throughout history, as long as WikiLeaks has been around, we've seen that it's support, or people that it will temporarily support WikiLeaks, it oftentimes is politically motivated, especially when it comes to like the politicians and the political parties. We've seen that. But with this, it's interesting because both sides do not want this to be talked about at all. But it's extremely appalling. To read this is just extremely disturbing. And again, the science doesn't lie here.
Well, I'll bring the WikiLeaks back up, the actual documents, and know that we're on Caitlin Johnstone's article there.
Yeah, I just pulled it up too. And I wanted to echo your guys' disappointment that Tulsi Gabbard has still not said anything on this. That's of all the candidates right now, she should be out there banging on drums about this. Like, it's just, frankly.
Sometimes it makes me wonder who is advising some of these people.
Yeah.
Well, look, the DNC has kind of made a point of saying you have to take some of our staff on as advisors. Bernie Sanders himself is the DNC outreach coordinator. Tulsi Gabbard, as we know, held the vice chair of the DNC up until 2015 when she resigned over the treatment of Bernie Sanders. But she was being groomed to be a DNC insider. And whether or not that shift away from them is real, that doesn't matter, because she's still got people that are telling her what to do. Like, I don't think for a second she wants to keep her mouth shut about this. I don't.
I hope not.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. That's why I wonder who is advising these people. She's been smeared about this, and a lot of people dislike her for this very fact. They'll often cite this a reason they don't like her, or they'll claim she's a centrist. But this specifically, I feel like she should address this 100%, not only because it's helpful to her, but also because it's really important that people hear about this first and foremost.
Well, I mean, let's just go through some of the text here from WikiLeaks. The OPC team members wrote that the key takeaway message from the meeting was that symptoms observed were inconsistent with exposure to chlorine, and no other obvious candidate chemical causing the symptoms could be identified. What that means is that the cylinders that they found and examined were empty fucking cylinders that were placed there. Like, right. I don't, and again, this should be something that you know, traditional liberals, I guess, or just regular people who identify as small d Democrats should be screaming about, because that's ammunition against Orange Man bad. That is a legitimate legitimate thing to impeach bad Orange Man over. Is a fucking war crime reaction to an obvious false flag. And they're like, nope, WikiLeaks is the bad guy. We're not even going to allow it to enter into our heads that we're agreeing with Donald Trump on this, or that our Democratic Party leaders have voted with Trump 87% of the time. And
well, that's there you go right there, because then they'd have to admit that they were also in the wrong, and that's not going to happen.
Right. And they benefit from these wars and these acts of aggression and acts of conflict elsewhere in the world. They want this to continue happening. But I feel like there needs to be obviously some accountability here, and that's putting it lightly. I don't see that happening, but it's, again, and Chrissy, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I mean, don't you think that if this was not authentic, these organizations like Bellingcat and even the U.S. government probably would come out, or maybe not the government, but other organizations and other entities would come out very strongly and say, no, this is false, and provide evidence for that. And that's precisely what's not happening here.
Right. I agree. And that, I think that with a lot of WikiLeaks drops, if there was a way to prove that they were false, these entities, these governments would sure as hell be doing that. And we're not seeing that happen with this, with any of these 4 drops.
Look,
nobody has.
Bellingcat tries to like debunk WikiLeaks. It works out fucking terribly for them.
Right. Yeah.
And it shows they have an agenda too. And one of the articles that you shared with me, Steve, like it seems they were talking about their procedure and how they were sort of debunking these leaks. And it was very clear when I was reading that these journalists had a motive, and that motive was to debunk this information. And they were looking to achieve a certain outcome, which goes back to the point that we know that this organization is funded by the U.S. government, essentially. And they're in the business of narrative management. And Jason is here.
Just real quick, I said at the top of the show that like there were no rules and no agenda to this broadcast today, and I had sent out a link to a handful of people to see if they wanted to pop in and close out the year with me. Jason Burmis is one of those guys. I don't know how much time he has, but I'm stoked that he decided to pop in while we go over this. Jason, how the hell are you?
Good, man. And yeah, I mean, I'm taking care of the kids, but I saw that and I was like, well, I've got a few minutes. So I'm glad I jumped in at the OPCW point, where now we have 4 separate leaks, the 4th confirming that there was tests that said there was no evidence of chlorine poisoning. Yet again, media completely silent on this. And remember, Tariq Hadid tried to report on this after the 2nd round of leaks, and Newsweek refused to let him, and instead ran rebel, aka al-Nusra, aka al-Qaeda propaganda instead. And it's fucking disgusting, man. So I'm glad you guys are doing God's work.
And by the way, on January 12th, it's
Yes.
Sunday, we're going to have a special episode of the Free Assange Vigil series. I'm going to air it on this channel. It'll be during the regular Sunday show time here. Tariq Hadid will be a guest that day, and I cannot wait to talk to that guy about just all of this. It's fascinating. By the way, Gordon Dimick will be on. He'll be, I think, hosting it on his channel as well. Emmy B, who goes by Greek Emmy on Twitter, massive Julian Assange supporter and figure, instrumental in sharing information. Will be on. It will be a monster show, and I'm very, very much looking forward to that.
That sounds awesome, man. Great stuff.
But yeah, while we're here and we're discussing this is fucking incredible. Here we have,
man. It's more than incredible, because now we have the 4th verifiable leak. They're still trying to play it up like WikiLeaks and Assange are an agent of Russia and Poot. Meanwhile, they're putting out more and more propaganda that, oh, it looks like the Russians are at it again and they're fucking us up in Syria. They're the only reason that we kind of had to straighten our situation out just a little bit. And then there were military conflicts between the U.S. soldiers and Russian mercenaries, aka Russian soldiers as well, where we took hundreds of their lives. And that caused a big deal in their media. Obviously, they were upset, yet you barely heard about it here. The bigger story is we're still at war with a country we have consistently lied about. We knowingly entered with a CIA Operation Timber Sycamore program during the Obama administration under Biden, who they're still trying to push as the front runner, and no one will even say that about Syria, let alone any of the other stuff there that we've talked about, Steve. It's craziness, man. I mean, our media is so over the top complicit with this war machine. And then this false left-right paradigm is so exposed by this because the so-called left refuses to go after the Trump administration for continuing to propagate the lie. There has not been one response about all of these leaks, again, confirming no chemical attack in Duma in 2018.
And in fact, proving that the entire narrative centered around Syria and all of the military activity that took place as a result of this was fabricated, false light. Like, it exposes not just the Trump administration or the Democrats, but also the media and also all of these organizations like the OPCW that are acting as errand boys and mere messengers.
But let's stop. The OPCW bureaucracy at the top, because the people that they actually sent in are like, what the fuck? Thank God we got these leaks, because now we know it's not just some, everybody's in on the cover up. No, everybody keeps their mouth shut after the fact because they realize the power that's wielded at the top.
They tried to
bottom. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Taylor.
No, it's okay. They tried to go about this through the internal route. They tried to go through the system, which we know is ridiculous, and that does not ever work. But they tried to do it the quote unquote correct way, the appropriate way, which is going through the system. But of course, that didn't work, and there was no and there was no accountability there. So they leaked it to WikiLeaks. But they tried to do this.
These people are real fucking whistleblowers.
Yes.
And the thing is that they want their names out there. They want people to know what happened, and our media won't report on that. Meanwhile, there's still a media to do about Erica Caramello Bar and whether or not you say that name in the proper sense, where I've done now almost 850 videos on my channel. And the one video where I just played congressional impeachment inquiry hearing footage of Louis Gohmert saying that name, first of all, it got remonetized. But then when the algorithm caught he said the name, they locked it as private across the world. And it's the only video I've ever had locked private. They said it was because of misleading tags. There's no misleading tags, no misleading description. I've appealed it. I appealed it live. And it's funny because the video I did appealing it live also got remonetized and acknowledged and is not locked. Yet this video to this day, and that should be alarming, that in the United States, and really European media, they won't say the name. No one will say this magical name of a CIA fucking agent. Like, what planet are we on that we are now in like the third round of pony show hearings that aren't going to stop the war machine, by the way, where we can't name that guy who's a supposed whistleblower, but the real whistleblowers that come forward and say, hey, these chemical attacks never happened. Can we do something about this? They're not acknowledged. Just like the 9/11 whistleblowers, like Abel Danger, Robert Wright, Barry Carmody of the FBI, all of them trying to show how the funding worked, and then Abel Danger, how Atta's network was moving for years and they were surveilling him. All that gets pushed under the rug. No one wants to talk about Khalid al-Mihdhar, one of the lead hijackers, living with and renting from an FBI informant. Those whistleblowers, America will never, ever know about. It's sad. And they've been controlling this narrative for a very long time, but now to stick it to the point where they'll literally just pull your stuff off the internet if you say that name, that's fucking bananas.
It's the kind of censorship that they've dreamed about ever since the CIA came into being. Even the OSS before that. It's just the public consent wasn't fully there. The division wasn't fully there to where they could just highlight one particular person or one particular subject and have uniformity among an entire political class of people saying, take away their ability to speak.
You're 100% right. Once they sold that narrative to the people, like, man, again, you know, in my community, you know, I'm upstate New York, but it's pretty, you know, quote unquote liberal or beyond progressive. I mean, we got the transgender kids. We got them. I mean, thank God this one kid never took any hormone. I mean, this kid was 6 years old and thought he was a girl, I guess. And for like a year and a half in the schools, they did the whole bathroom thing here. I'm in a small community, man, you know, and then obviously with this whole impeachment thing, I got people out in my main street across from the bar I used to run, bro. And they're all impeach now, remove, impeach now. You know, there's, you know, they got the stupid hats on. And you go talk to these people and you talk to them about a serious issue like, well, what do you think about Yemen? They don't even know where Yemen is. They have no idea what Yemen is. They don't know what I'm talking about. They don't know about the congressional and Senate resolution to get us out of there and that Trump vetoed that. They have no fucking idea. They know the Turks and the Kurds, whatever they heard on MSNBC. You know what I'm saying? So, and then I say, all right, well, what do you think about this whole OPCW thing in Syria? And no, crickets, man. They're not
too
the
busy
people.
watching the guy from The Office be a badass CIA agent and overthrow fucking I'm not even kidding, man. I'm not. Look, we don't have a media that challenges the narrative. Like, I mean, no, we kind of used to. We at least had an entire fucking division of like rap and punk rock, and to an extent, like.
There's the
rock and roll shit that existed to be like, hey, there's another side to this that nobody's fucking seen, and it's uniform fucking narrative management out of like almost all forms of art right now. It's brutal to witness.
It is tough. Not everybody's going along with it, dude. You know what I just finally watched? I finally caught the Watchmen series, right? Now, I don't know if you guys saw the movie on that. But I watched the director's cut, and I think it's the best superhero movie. It's the most truthful superhero movie that was ever put out. I haven't watched that Boys series or whatever, but very profound for its time. Showed you kind of this false division in the Cold War. You know, Nixon never gets impeached in this alterverse, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, the heroes ain't great, you know, and we're talking false flags, fear, mass murder, genocide, eugenics. I mean, it covers it all in this thing. And even kind of like the obfuscation of... Have you seen the movie, Steve?
I have not. I'm sorry.
Oh, my God.
It was actually something that, like, I had meant to go while my kids are on break, they were like, "You need to see this movie with us."
You need to,
So
dude. Zack
I'll
Snyder actually, he's always hit and miss, but brother, I'm telling you, it's almost 3 hours long. There's different versions and different cuts with different music, but you want the one that starts out. I think it was with Bob Dylan's "The Times They Are a Changin' While They're Going Through the Graveyard," and I don't want to spoil it for you then. But basically, kind of like this, the guy, they almost present as the biggest psychopath throughout, is the only one with any moral boundaries, okay? And the only one with any gumption. And all I'm going to say is, by the end of it, he's going to be the most demonized. And in this series, even the way it kicks off, kind of the memory, because it ends in that one, and like when the world ends in like 1985 in this Ultraverse with Richard Nixon, it's a brilliant movie. But this one goes all the way to today and what society's like afterwards. And, this guy has now been basically smeared and then held up as a movement for white supremacy and an excuse for a police state based on them being terrorists. All right. So I'm just going to leave it at that. A brilliant show. Honestly, it's probably the best show I've seen. I don't know, man, maybe the last 5-10 years. It's that good. It's 9 episodes. I highly recommend it. I don't recommend it for dumb people, unfortunately, because a lot of you are going to be like, what the fuck is going on here? And totally, even, if you haven't seen the movie, I also recommend the movie. People that are into the books and novels, it's pretty brilliant, man. It's Alan Moore. So, he's got his little occult connections, his 33rd degree masonry. Everybody loves to talk about that, but he's also a brilliant writer. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. And honestly, it shows you how easily people are manipulated, and you just got to look around, man. I'll tell you what. So my sister and my mother were up. They just left today, and the last time my sister came up, probably, I don't know, a month and a half ago, we've got a thing called the Yellow Deli here. All right, so people don't know what that is. It's like this deli that's run by a cult called the 12 Tribes of Israel.
Okay.
Now, they're throughout the United States and out in Europe. And they also happen to be my neighbors. Now, I've been here a long time. And back in the day when I was in college and they were trying to get in here, the town wouldn't let them in because Main Street was booming. Everything was, running pretty good. It was, social media wasn't here. The internet wasn't here. Bars were letting whoever in. In fact, my town at one point before I came to college here was in the Guinness Book of World Records for most bars per square mile. I think we had like something like 52. It was ridiculous. So you have all this going on. We didn't let them in. Well, as time progressed and businesses went out, about 15 years ago, they bended and they did come in. All right. So there's a lot of abuse allegations. I mean, forget about just recruitment, but sexual allegations against kids. Not this one in particular, but throughout, and kid labor or whatever. My sister used to come up here religiously and go to that deli. And I just, at one point, she said something to me and I go, you realize that like they think that black people are cursed eternally. That's one of the weird things they believe.
Yeah.
I think it's the Shem or something like that. And then I told her what they do with the kids there, because you're not even allowed to have kids or get married without their permission. If you come in as a single mom, they segregate your child. It's a whole weird thing. By the time she came back this week, dude, she was so enthralled and could not believe. She's like, so what are we going to do about it, Jason? How are we going to? And I'm like, Alyssa, I hate to tell you, but weirder shit is going on than that. And, these ones aren't abusing their kids. I'm a live and let live guy. You expose what you can and you kind of move on, and if it's a big enough deal and you think that the abuse is that bad, you got to organize. I go, the world's a really messed up place and that's the tip of the iceberg. So just waking her up to that, you know what I mean, was kind of a win for me, because I think she's much younger than me. I think she thinks I'm kind of nuts. She's never watched my film or anything like that, doesn't watch these videos. But that's just the regular population. She's another one, man. She's one of those orange man bad. She thinks Trump's a fucking racist.
A very good friend of mine was over just a couple of days ago, and he moved up to Oregon about 6 years ago. I've only seen him a couple of times since. And when I met him, he was coming out of his Ron Paul libertarian phase and going more into deeper into the conspiracy world, and was starting to get drift from anarcho-capitalist to anarcho-communist, or some sort of form of that, like a little bit less, like 100% greedy, and a little bit more social fucking awareness, just in general. We have to do this together. There's no government that's going to step in and save us. No corporation is going to step in and save us. We're going to survive. As humans, we need to, invest in a little humanity. And even he has been caught up in all of this. Like, he was like, well, I mean, what do you think the rest of the world thinks of us? And I was like, are you really? And I started laughing. I was fucking like, why do you fucking care about what the world thinks about Donald Trump when Donald Trump is a fucking figurehead?
Dude, in 2019, he's asking this fucking question. Hey, how about in 2003 when we're about everything? What do you think the fucking world thought of when we literally took our dick off of South America and planted it in the Middle East in front of everybody, said, fuck you, and we're going everywhere else? You think that's when he's asking the question when we put the fucking next celebritard in office? Are you out of your mind? That's what I mean.
No, it was a complete regression from where he's been. And I was like, what? How's your internet connection at home? And he's like, it's pretty bad. I'm like, you've only been watching cable news for the last, 5 years, huh? He's like, yeah, pretty much. Whatever I can get on my phone when I can get it. I'm like, dude, do you realize the backward steps you've taken?
People are so brainwashed. Like, it's more common than people think. We've talked about this before, but the thing is, it's a very small percentage of people who are able to see through this and think the way that we do. Most people get their news from mainstream outlets. Of course, that number is dwindling, which is a good thing, and more people are going to independent media. But a lot of people feel that way, even young people. I'm the youngest one here. People my age buy into all of this. People, I don't want to get too specific, but in say anything too specific where people know I'm talking about them specifically, but people who have hated Hillary Clinton, thought she was a horrible person. This person, considered themselves socialists, what have you. She got the nomination. Meanwhile, Bernie's cheated. Oh, Hillary was the greatest person, and we were going to have a female president. And they jumped ship like that. And this is a young person in their early 20s. It's amazing how effective the propaganda is. So I think it's always important to remember that, unfortunately, we still are in a small percentage here. And to what you were saying, Jason, you talked to your sister about this and you felt happy that you were able to enlighten her on this one small issue. It's a really good feeling when you're able to reach somebody and get them to kind of question what they've been always, been hearing and have been told. So that's important as well, but it's so common despite age.
Yeah, well, all right, so let's go into consideration like that in between. The sale of Barack Obama should have alarmed everybody. All right. Number one, they sold you if you didn't vote for Barack Obama. You're a fucking racist. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on that? This guy, for anybody that has no idea, first of all, they started pumping him up as a state senator. Think about this. How many state senators have the media ever pumped up? Zero. Zip. Zilch.
Get to give a fucking highest rated night on the Democratic National Convention fucking full speech.
And that was my next point. In 2004, they ponyboyed him up as the main speaker without winning an election. He was winning his first Senate election then. All right, that is a 6-year term for you newbies out there. Okay, within 3 years of your first Senate term, and by the way, it's pretty fucking rare that a state senator moves up to senator. That's not what usually happens. Usually it's a high-profile congressman or some other political figure from a military outlet that they push for a Senate spot. Let's get that clear. Just the fact that this guy, as a state senator, my buddy James Seward down the road, he's never going to be a senator in New York. You know why? There's two. There's two. So they prop him up already as this godlike figure. They're giving him super amounts of media attention. I can already hear the buzz. And I'm like, oh my God, Then when he announces halfway through his first Senate term, where he's done nothing because it's your first Senate term, he's on the cover of Rolling Stone as God. I'm going to bring that up right now. Obama God.
I think that's always a sign to me. If somebody's being promoted as like Time Person of the Year or is on the cover of this magazine or wins this, that is always a sign to me that they are in on this game.
I was in college when Obama started to become on the scene and ran for president the first time. And it was amazing to watch my peers just fall into the propaganda and fall into this celebrity figure that they wanted to like be best friends with and hang out with, and he's so cool, and not really talking about what he had done or how he's going to accomplish any of these things that he was claiming. But it was just this like magnetism, this allure of this celebrity president, future president. And it was really disgusting, actually, watching people my age that, we had just come off there were huge protests at the college I went to for the Iraq War. And then they just fell into this, just ate it up. And it just...
Well, look, dude, if you're staring down the window at Black Jesus.
I mean, and look, read that though. Underneath, notice this is 2008 when he's running Hillary's last stand. They're still propping her up at the thing because there was a headbutt there. So in 2008, I actually voted for Cynthia McKinney. Number one, because I'd seen her in action. Number two, because I believed in a lot of her policies. Not all of them. Again, there were things I disagreed with, but no one acknowledged that. As soon as I said I didn't vote for Barack Obama, it was like, you're a racist. I'm like, dude,
I voted for a black woman.
I'm like, I'm not even that white. And people like say that to me. And I'm just like, are you out of your mind? You think I care about the color of someone's skin? Can we get over that? I go, the guy is not going to do anything. He says all the right things with no substance. Again, he was at that Bilderberg meeting or secret meetings with Hillary Clinton and other people. Robert Gibbs, his chief of staff, got caught on camera on the run-up, getting all the media back on Air Force One on the plane.
He clerked it.
They're like, where is he? I don't know. Really? So you're meeting with David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger. You're going to be so different. Just like Trump, who loves Henry Kissinger. He's going to be so different. The 100-year-old warmongering ghoul that won't die, who was literally the protege of the other 101-year-old warmongering ghoul of a billionaire family and dynasty, David Rockefeller. I mean, you couldn't write a cartoon graphic novel as evil as this shit is. And look, people that think Barack Obama really did anything, no. Listen, that whole administration was a puppeteered by the military-industrial complex. We got Libya. We got Syria, okay? We kept propagandizing against Iran and North Korea. To say he was like a peacetime president, you are in fucking Imaginationville, man.
He was a milquetoast caretaker of Reaganomics at best. At best. At worst, he was a fucking demon that put the entire left to sleep while he committed atrocity after atrocity on every conceivable level. Economic, psychological, physical, and full-on fucking warfare. Asymmetrical warfare of every kind.
He subdued the anti-war left. Mm-hmm. He made it okay to go to war because their guy was doing it, so he must have had a good reason. And that anti-war movement died during his administration.
Yeah. Along with any fucking original thought that Bill Maher ever put into his career.
I haven't watched real time. Every once in a while, I catch a clip. You know what I mean? I saw him with Robert Kennedy Jr. recently.
Oh God,
that was probably like from a couple months ago. But I can't. I grew up on Politically Incorrect when it was on Comedy Central.
He had Boots Riley on Politically Incorrect. Boots fucking Riley. Like, right after the Party Time album from The Coup came out, and it was the original album cover was the Twin Towers going down, and he's holding a fucking bass pedal as the detonator.
Didn't he lose his show?
Boots Riley had the best movie of 2018,
You're
guys.
goddamn right you did. I've talked about it on the show several times, but not in a while. If you haven't, go see Sorry to Bother You. It is fucking incredible. My very good friend Julie is an extra in a bunch of the scenes. She was like teasing the fuck out of me with this shit while they were filming. It was like,
dude, it's so good. Dude, it's so
you're
good.
You're gonna fucking flip. Oh, it was brutal. But yeah.
Dude, I felt like it was way better, not only than Black Klansman, but probably just about every. I can't think of a comedy from 2010 that did better political satire than that. Like Grosse Pointe Blank from like the tail end of the 90s, that was brilliance, right?
Yeah.
You really didn't see a lot of that kind of satire, and this was. I mean, you're not ready for it, but this is banking, corporate, military, industrial satire at its fucking finest.
And surveillance state,
baby.
Like it's brilliant. And fuck, dude, like, yeah, and you're not ready. There's
Don't even ruin it. You're not ready. It's that good. 10 thumbs up. Again, my movie of the year in 2018. I couldn't think of one that made me laugh harder and think more and enjoy a film. Actually enjoy, like, and it caught me off, because usually when they hype up those indie films, it's such a fucking letdown. It's like other than Clerks and like a handful of others, it's such a letdown. This exceeded every expectation I had. Props to Boots Riley. I'm not a communist, but I like your work with Tom Morello. You've done some good stuff, my friend.
Oh, and in terms of Black Klansman, Boots Riley wrote a magnificent piece highlighting like what the difference between Black Klansman and Sorry to Bother You was. Black Klansman ultimately shows you that a white member of the police state is the hero. Like, reinforces all of these fucking control narratives, and
whitewashes the fact that the main character was actually COINTELPRO for the FBI and sold his people out. You know what I mean? Yeah, I read that piece. I actually sent that piece to somebody this week, and that's that was from like a year plus ago. Yeah. And he had said something about something else in Hollywood, and I was like, well, you should check this out, because I'll tell you what, man. Little known story, but Spike Lee, way back in the day, late 90s, visited my college. It was like one of the first big things I went to. And I had inherited some money from my great aunt, like $5,000, which was a ton, like in 1998. And I was able to get my first DV cameras and stuff like that. So I was already kind of messing around with this stuff. I wanted to do computer graphics anyway. That's what I was going to school for, et cetera. And he came and he basically talked about his breakthrough and how he had to go to film school and spend all this money on cameras, and he lucked out with She's Gotta Have It. And he's like, but at this point, he's like, within the next 5 to 10 years, anybody's going to be able to do this. He's like, anybody's going to be able to afford a camera. It doesn't matter, what the quality is. If you want to get this done, you'll be able to get it done. You can shoot it, you can edit it, you can put it together now for literally a fraction of the cost. And I was like, yeah. That's true. And I mean, that was kind of like the evolution of me thinking, I can do this. Why can't I make documentary films? I never wanted to be like a Hollywood guy. I love comedy. A couple of my friends, man, they've actually made it in the film industry. It's pretty incredible. My buddy, another great movie of 2018, actually it might be 2017 now. In fact, it probably is 2017, is They Were Never Really Here. And, Joaquin Phoenix is getting a ton of press for the Joker. I'm going to do a big breakdown of that, but I wasn't a huge fan. I think most of it's kind of just a psychopathic, like, imagination land. That doesn't really happen. Like the false narrator thing, it goes further than just the girl if you've seen it, but that's a whole nother story. I didn't enjoy it that much. They Were Never Really Here was much grittier by Joaquin Phoenix, and it actually was a story about a vigilante who goes after a high-level pedophilia ring that's connected to, like, government officials and corporate people. And that's why you didn't hear about that film. And I remember I was at a buddy's wedding, and my friend came over. We hadn't seen each other for years. And this is when we lived together while I was putting together Loose Change with the other guys. And he was literally like shooting whatever he could and getting it on a green screen and trying to get in. And he wasn't even in college at the point. And he starts telling me about this movie that he wants to, I think he wants to do. About, he was telling me how he had read the Franklin Scandal because I sent it to him, et cetera, and he wanted to do this movie about this vigilante with a hammer, ball-peen hammer, that goes after high-level pedophiles. And I'm like, yeah, right. And he's like, no, it's out right now. He's like, wait, if you get home, you can go check it out on Amazon Prime. Shout out to Amazon because they're the ones that distributed the film. And most people don't know about it. It's fucking amazing. He just assistant directed the Mr. Rogers movie, and he did what is it? The Old Man and the Gun. He's doing great work, and it lets me know there's good people in Hollywood too. But he also knows there's fucking demons everywhere. And he actually, one of those things. Another great show, True Detective, right? Another show that shows high level pedophilia, high level corruption, not just on that level, but a lot of people hated the second season. I was like, dude, it shows how like the mafia runs the entire city and their transportation system and how it's all gangsterism and they're trafficking in women and drugs too. Why didn't you like it?
For as corny as the show was, Leverage did that too. I don't know if you ever saw it or not. It, like mid 2000s, they put it out on the USA Network. My wife found it on Netflix and we like watched it. But yeah, it's basically a group of fucking vigilantes that are good at their particular tasks who go after fucking corporate raiders and fucking people who are corporations that are untouchable. And one of the very first episodes, there's a CEO that's like, if I kill a guy, I go to prison. If my company kills 10,000 people, we pay a fine.
Yeah. And art sneaks through, right? But it's not popularized like what is it? What's the Jack Ryan show you were talking about on Amazon?
No, that's it. It's Jack Ryan, isn't it?
Oh, is it Jack Ryan? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think it's called Jack Ryan. Maybe.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you know what? That guy can't even speak for himself. For people that don't know, I mean, he's been dead for a long time. The author of those series that Jack Ryan is based on, all those Harrison Ford movies and Red October. I mean, who is that? Tom Clancy?
Tom Clancy, but he was a fucking narrative manager in his own right. Like let's find a different way to hate the Arabs. Let's find a fucking different way to hate the Chinese. Fucking, I'm going to reinforce white Jesus capitalism the entire way through the books. And but no, he can't speak for himself, but I'm sure he'd give fucking, what's his name, Joel Jim, a pat on the back for fucking...
Well, he loves the CIA, Jim does. He's in that clip. Thank God for the CIA and all their assassinations and all their programs that have put second and third world countries into destitute. And thank God for the World Bank and the IMF. I mean, it's sad. 2020's here almost. I mean, we're days away. I mean, I'm just doing what I can. I'm glad you guys are. And by the way, I'm pumped to be doing twice a week with you guys. I know we got to work out the details, but that's going to be really fun. You guys are doing real work. I mean, how many people are really talking? I bring up that OPCW stuff to everybody I talk to if they want to talk politics. The moment we start talking about the Trump administration, you need to find a pivot point and move the conversation to a place called reality. Like for instance, I was at the ATM getting a little cash key. Another guy walks up to me that I know. He's asking me about this impeachment. They don't even know what the articles are. Obstruction of Congress.
Yeah.
Obstruction of Congress?
Yeah.
Like obstruction of my asshole. How is that a thing? Congress is allowed to literally not only lie to you, but then write policy which enforces those lies with death. Like, are you out of your fucking mind? I'm not allowed to lie to those fucking people. If there's anybody that I should be able to lie to with privilege, it is fucking Congress and the Senate. It's mind-blowing stuff. So obstruction of Congress, and then I believe some kind of obstruction of an investigation by telling his underlings not to go and talk to them. Gee, I wonder why he did that, since you were supposed to be investigating Russian ties for before the time he was president, and then instead of putting anybody away for any Russian ties or proving any Russian ties, you took my friends and you fucking got them on charges from 15 fucking years ago for slight bits of corruption, which I'm sure the levels were much higher, but that's what you could get them on because they have good lawyers. You got them to lie about their crimes 15 years ago. Good for you. You took my lawyer. You went through his files on me, still couldn't prove anything, and you desperately wanted me in a perjury trap. I mean, if anybody doesn't realize what that was please testify, Trump, and we will do the same thing we did to Roger Stone, Manafort, and your lawyer. That's it. That's all it was. And if you think different, you read nothing. You listened to Ari fucking Melber. You listened to fucking Shepard Smith, and every other asshole on the left and right that is part of a paradigm that is paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year to read off a fucking teleprompter. So if that's for you, if you want brain mush, 2020's coming. There's going to be plenty of that for you, and I'm sure they're going to be cutting some censorship lines over on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to the Info Warrior.
Yeah, we talked about our predictions or thoughts of what we can expect in 2020 and the coming decade. So we talked about that on our last vigil of the year.
Real quick, when you got to bounce, just bounce, dude.
Yeah, no, as soon as the kids come up and want me to go check the closet downstairs, which is just I don't even want to get, it's Christmas time, so there's just a bunch of new stuff around. And then we got to get rid of some of the old stuff. So as soon as my nieces run up and do that, I'll say farewell and I'll send them. Like I said, man, we got a big house. We're good. Until they complain to me or I hear something downstairs that I have to go rush down to, we're good.
All right. Yeah, no, I got 3 kids. It still looks like Christmas threw up in my living room.
No, we garbage bagged it, but now it's time to figure out where all the stuff's going to go.
Yeah,
like they thought stuff in the trees.
We went to a friend's house last night for last fucking Christmas get together.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my youngest son's gifts was like a 750 piece fucking Lego set. And I was like,
I bought 2 of them.
Fucking bastards! I will think of you every time I step on one.
No, they're always. I got the 120 piece or lower sets for each of them, and they're not allowed to open them unless I'm with them and we're doing it together. Because I made the mistake of buying like a 300 piece, what was it, Steven Universe, like van set for one of them last year.
Oh my gosh!
So quick,
yeah,
they quit.
I told my friend Amy, I'm like, dude, when your husband goes to work, I'm sending my kid over with symbols.
Dude, you've been doing that for months.
Every time I step on one of them fucking Legos, guaranteed, guaranteed. Oh, real quick, while it just popped into my head, and you did videos on this, Jason, but I don't know if everybody's hip on it. The third Kevin Spacey accuser since May turned up dead. The odds of which are 70 million or so to 1, and the medical examiner for Sandy Hook and a couple other big headline incidents, he turned up dead. Although, if you go to the Social Security death index, he does not pop up.
Listen, with the Sandy Hook thing, I'll say this. I watched his entire speech. I know a lot of people cut it up, but it was like an hour and 20 minutes. I've done videos on that in the past. I want to say all the way back in 2012 or 13 when it initially happened. I've done extensive videos on my opinions on Sandy Hook, the real anomalies, the bullshit. Anyone can check them out on my channel. But as far as the third accuser of Kevin Spacey, wasn't it bizarre that he also put out his little Frank Underwood Christmas card the day before?
Kill him with kindness.
I'm
serious.
I saw that. It was super weird.
In the first one, a lot of people's big conspiracy theory was that he was holding the royal cup. Like they were like, oh, Prince Andrew, that is the same Slither circle. Let's not forget Spacey is very connected to high-level pedophile Bryan Singer, who is the Hollywood director of basically their breakout performance and their breakout film, which is The Usual Suspects. They worked together many times after that. Weinstein, obviously Miramax, was one of the companies that put many of those pictures out, also part of that Slither circle. You look at Spacey and Clinton, they have a 3-decade plus relationship. He was in the White House with Clinton 30 plus years ago. And what people don't know, Weinstein also was in the White House the entire time Clinton was there from 92 to 2000 as his personal projectionist, where they used to go on vacation together. I just did a video on that. So talk about a Slither circle. You've got Weinstein, you've got Epstein, you've got Spacey. Remember, Epstein and Clinton rode on that same plane together on one of those many trips. That's how close they were. Frank Underwood is somewhat based on Bill Clinton.
Oh, yeah.
If you're unaware.
Definitely.
100%. Bill Clinton actually said the show is pretty realistic. Well, guess what? For a big spoiler alert, if you've never seen it, in the second season, kind of mid-season shock moment is when Frank Underwood becomes a murderer of people, a direct murderer of people, and not the only one he ends up killing throughout the series. So you have a psychopathic, sociopathic murderer who's in a pair bonding relationship with another sociopath. Okay. And it's very accurate. If you look at the other sociopath also, he's a Southern guy, right? He's got that drawl. Well, his wife looks a lot like Hillary Clinton. And although I didn't get to the point where they kill him off, et cetera, he's at the Bohemian Grove before that. It is very realistic. And just
she starts killing people too. She starts killing people too.
I'm sure she fucking does.
Yeah.
And it's literally, and the president's like, it's pretty accurate. It's very accurate. And we accept that. And that's the thing. Most people aren't that dumb anymore. They've been exposed. Like, there's already been that conversation over the last 15 years when I'm like, hey, by the way, do you know a bunch of the big right-wing elites in the military-industrial complex go and dress up in robes and worship an owl god? A lot harder to tell people that in 2002, 2003. Come around the computer, everybody. Now it's like, no, here's a video. Like, you can't get away from it. And then all of a sudden they're like, huh. And then they see it on a TV show and it's almost normalized, but you root for the bad guy. That's the other thing that's so twisted about our society right now. We have been so, I would say, pushed towards rooting for the anti-hero. I mean, Scarface, how popular are Scarface? I want to be a fucking cocaine dealer that came from nothing and is murderous and heartless. Narcos, all these anti-hero programs.
Our traditional folk heroes.
They are folk heroes now, man.
Yeah, I mean, like, even the old school ones. Fucking Davy Crockett and shit.
Yeah, we've seen a switch in culture, actually, where anti-heroes are maybe not necessarily promoted, but they are a part of these stories and in these storylines, and we root for them, and we want them to win. It wasn't like that back in, like, the 50s or 60s or, many decades ago, but we've seen that culture shift for sure.
When we put out movies, when we put out film, what were the ones that everyone wanted to go see? The Westerns and the war movies. That's it. And who was always the hero in the Western? The fucking outlaw. Or at least the favorite character. We mythologized Billy the Kid and fucking, or a flat out murderer like Custer. That's who that's what American audiences want to root for. The guy who gets away with killing the most people.
You're not wrong, man. Spaghetti westerns and shit. You know what? I'll say this. Here's my my big superhero one, right? So, like, I'm much more of a Spider-Man than Batman guy, and why? Well, if you look at Batman, what is it? It's basically like this rich billionaire that's just going to protect us from everything and is benevolent, and he's always giving to the right charity and fighting the bad guys. I don't know many really good billionaires. Like, I can't think of one that I'm like rooting for it. And you were talking about predictions in 2020. My prediction is the cult of Elon Musk gets greater and greater and greater. And we get in a dangerous situation where things like Neuralink are really starting to be promoted, and things like drones over the skies of the United States of America become normalized. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this story, but I did it yesterday, and actually there's video footage out today where there are bands, not just one, but bands of 6-foot wingspan drones that are now flying over rural Colorado and Nebraska skies. And now they're getting caught on video, and the local law enforcement's like, we don't know. And the national law enforcement's like, we don't know. But now they put out an official thing where they're saying, don't shoot them down. Well, you would think that if law enforcement doesn't know, the first thing you do is you shoot one fucking down and you see what it is. Like, that's like 101. So obviously, I mean, what is this? It could, if they were privatized and they were flying that large of an area, they would have to contact the right authorities at some point, right? Now, if it's a beta test, because they're flying at night, of night vision capabilities, of automation, and how they're going to keep them straight. There's a lot of theories out there, from wacky ones, in my opinion, like the Mexican cartels. Like, why would they be by Colorado and Nebraska? But to privatize drone use. I mean, we could also be talking about less nefarious things like a company like Amazon or Google, when you have a 6-foot wingspan, of drone delivery of pallets to local centers that'll go out there and doing it at nighttime, and how feasible that is. But what I'm saying is, once that's in place, listen, the satellites in the sky, the drones that are already there in our military, we have a lot of surveillance. The CCTV footage, I mean, it's there. I see crazy footage every day now of, from somebody's ring or somebody's shop cam of like somebody trying to abduct an 11-year-old girl. Like I'm seeing this more and more. I don't know if you've seen these videos, but they're out there. So to think that surveillance grid isn't already being set up, we already know law enforcement is using smaller drones, certain police stations throughout the country. So I think you're going to see that large scale this year. You're going to see drones in the United States. And I think that they're going to be pushing, again, the cult of Elon Musk, everything Musk, but especially Neuralink, and how cool it's going to be for our brain-computer interfaces. Scary. Sorry, guys. No, I really want to bum everything fuck out. Sorry. Not my intention.
Christy or Taylor, hop in, man. You guys have not had a lot to say the last little while. Why don't you run some shit here for a second?
You know what? I could bring up the video of the drones. We can do that. That's what we'll do.
I did read a little bit about that. I used to live in a couple of different places in Colorado. And the particular area where they're flying over, that's a heavily armed fucking populace there.
Well, the thing is that how high up are these fucking things? And if they're trying to be covert, why are their lights on? Why do they have 6-foot wingspans? And why are they flying in formations in multiples?
Right. If you put something in the air, you have to file a flight plan.
Exactly.
And that is made publicly available. If you see something in the sky over you, and there is no flight plan for it, filed on the FAA registry, it's doing nefarious shit, and you should shoot it down.
Like, here we go. There's the spots of it. I mean, to be that high up and almost look like a plane, that's pretty crazy. So, I'm wondering what's going on. I'm going to keep up on the story. To me, it's obviously either military, law enforcement, or private. Otherwise, it wouldn't. It's not. And when I say private, I don't mean private citizens. If it was a private citizen, you can bet your ass, or if it was like a cartel group, they would have been shot down by now. Period.
No, 100%. And to tell the populace, do not shoot at this. That means they know what it is, and they know where you're shooting it.
And it's under the cover of night as well, so you can't get a good look at it. All of it's very bizarre. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I'm going to keep up on that story. But again, automation is coming. Like, people don't see it. They better start realizing it. If you're working in a factory, have an out plan. Have a secondary right now, because, even in the food industry, less people are going to have money to spend in these things. So that the service industry is going to be one of the few industries that's still alive, man. But I think it's going to be hanging by the skin of its teeth too, because you need people to spend money, and that's what this push for, a UBI is too. I think there's going to be more of a push for that. And that's scary. Universal basic income. Basically, human beings are obsolete, and we should all start on some kind of same monetary level. We already have over half the country on some kind of statewide assistance. That's a problem. That is a problem, that people can no longer afford their medical care, which is jacked up beyond any, $5,000 to $6,000 for an MRI. Bernie's not wrong when he talks about that shit. Like, this is old technology. It's not like MRIs are brand new. Like, we don't have these things. Like, they're not lying around.
We have cost comparison to the rest of the fucking world on this. We know exactly where we sit. We know exactly where what the rest of the country or the rest of the world pays. It's not like it's kept in the dark and kept away from us. All the information's there, and a lot of what Bernie does effectively is post that information. Look with your own goddamn eyes at how screwed we're getting. What he doesn't do effectively is distance himself from the disaster that is Obamacare, because he played a fucking part in that.
Well, again, socialized medicine's not going to work, especially when the insurance companies wrote the bill. And now that's become You know, even though they don't use it as a mainline talking point, people at least acknowledge that now. I remember, you know, back in the day being at InfoWars, and we were talking about, hey, this bill is basically just written by these insurance companies so they can jack up your premiums. Like, don't get it twisted and force you to buy it, or the government's going to fine you. So at some point, no matter what, they have their hand in your pocket, and it helps almost no one. Look, the bottom line is we should have first world medicine for everybody. And that's a system. Don't tell me it's overrun. You know, there's more nurses and people who understand that kind of stuff, pharmaceuticals, et cetera, out there than ever. However, the problem is they're pay for play. They get a bonus, these doctors, for prescribing something enough times. Well, this is what we're going with. We have a quota. Otherwise, we can't get it at this level of payment. Here's the pay break. So we need you to push this shit too. And it's been proven time and time again. We need a system that, again, focuses on, first of all, healthcare, like telling people, hey, this is what's wrong with you. Maybe you should eat this less, eat this more, exercise some. We'll get you on a program where maybe we can go to the gym 3 times a week.
Preventative healthcare, not reactive healthcare.
And even reactive, listen, if you're at a point where you have super high blood pressure, you can still walk into the office, but you're 70 pounds overweight. Well, let's start with, again, I'm going to prescribe you go to this place. You're going to have to check in for 1 hour a day. You're going to have to get these minimum things done. And once you do that, you'll come back after a couple of weeks. We'll get you on something if you still need it, if there's no progress. But people will find if you change your lifestyle, you do. And not only that, when you do need surgery, like emergency surgery, like forget it. You've done everything right. You've done everything right. And all of a sudden, you get in a car accident that's not your fault, New York State, no fault insurance. It doesn't look that bad, but you just broke your fucking hip. You know, you shouldn't be in debt $40,000 to $60,000 after they fix your hip. That's insanity. And that's the system we have, especially because you can go to other first world countries. They're paying almost the same tax rate as us. And those that are getting it hiked up and getting less, like the French, are very pissed off. We see that with the yellow vest movement. They're done. They're like, listen, we've already given you all this stuff. Now you're taking away what we paid for. And they've been escalating this for now over a year. They've had unions shut down electricity. That I like seeing that. You know, if you're paying in, I fear, but look at the systems, fuck them too. You know, they paid into a system that they thought was going to take care of them. And now they're like, your rent's too high. You can't do this. So the bottom line is when you let the government and the bureaucracy get out of control, this is what you get. That's why you need, in my opinion, smaller government. You need actual regulation of not only pharmaceutical companies, but companies in general. You can't have lobbyists. Like, if you want reality, you can't have, and that's why Roger Stone is a demon. He helped bring that in. You can't have corporations
For
that have
so many reasons. Roger Stone's a demon.
Well, I'd say that's top 5.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is.
That's like the top one. You can't have a system where billionaires and trillionaires that have now been recognized as people that are multitudes of minions get to buy out your politicians and then offer them work after the fact and think things are going to change. You know what I mean? We could talk all day about democracy and a constitutional republic and votes and, you know, super delegates and delegates. But at the end of the day, no matter who gets in, those people are still there, and legally they can do what they want, hire who they want. And on top of that, you know, I'll probably leave on this. It's about to be 2020, and we didn't even talk about probably one of the largest slither circles and global issues, in my opinion, one that I will probably be, unfortunately, ranting about until the day I die, is that royalty is still a thing. It is still very powerful. That is why Prince Andrew, the arms dealer of the UK, will do no time, will get in no trouble, because he's part of a royal bloodline, a rule by bloodline. And it's not just European royalty, okay? The Saudi Arabians have the same fucking system. And whether you're born into it in hundreds and thousands of years from this robber baron class, or you've erected your own system, like in China, this elitism, this nepotism will continue until we, the people, decide to take it back. I don't have a huge plan.
And don't you think we have that in America, that we have this unofficial ruling class with the Clintons and the Bushes and the Obamas, and then we see John McCain's daughter, we see the Bush girls on news media. I mean, now their children are infiltrating the media and telling us what to think. I mean, you go to the library and there's books by 2 children, by the Bush girls. There's books by journalists.
45 presidents share a common European royal ancestor.
Yeah.
That is not a fucking mistake.
We are not outside the royal bloodline ruling class here in America. It's just a little bit hidden under a different system. Yeah.
And how much is it really? I mean, if you look at how in bed we are with European intelligence, right? If you look at even how Benjamin Franklin, one of these guys that's heralded as, one of these great Americans, he went back and forth between Europe. There were a lot of those guys that signed the Constitution that were doing the same thing because you needed this type of delegation. And that's how we've remained in this close relationship. And like you said, whether it be the Bush family or it be the Clintons, at the end of the day, that's part of the social class uprising. Like you look at, for instance, Bush's father, right? He was a social climber. What did he do? He said, I'm going to go to Princeton. I'm going to get in Skull and Bones. I'm going to marry a bonesman sister. Now we're talking. Now I'm going to start doing deals with Hitler. Now we're getting into banking through Brown Brother Harriman Banking. We're going to get in the banking industry. We're going to fund both sides of the war. Sure, J. Edgar Hoover is going to freeze my assets at some point, but that's okay because I'll just become a politician. And then my son's going to become a politician. But before that, he's going to join the CIA, which I helped erect out of the OSS with the Nazis. I mean, that's the ruling class here. People think I'm joking about that, but that's exactly.
No, you're absolutely right.
No.
And real quick about the thing that Benjamin Franklin is heralded for is securing the funds so that the U.S. could continue to operate militarily. Look, the people that he went to for money to guarantee that the U.S. would form as a debtor nation were those European fucking bloodlines.
Yep. And the Rothschilds don't really hold many political parties, and they've got a ton of power. And you would call them royalty.
Very early on that they didn't need to because they own the fucking bank.
I would recommend people check out Edward Bernays' Propaganda. Before the term existed, he wrote a book, and that's where it comes from. It's only about 100 pages. But in the first, 10 pages, there's a passage there that explains the ruling class to a T and who really runs the show. I put it in Invisible Empire, New World Order Defined, but you can watch free over on my channel, all you slow news day watchers. So make sure to come on over and check them out. You can watch everything on the documentaries playlist. Guys, I wish you a happy 2020. Hope maybe we'll be seeing each other on Wednesday. I guess I'm going to DM you and let you know about that. I think I'm going to be doing something for New Year's Eve. I don't know yet, but if I do, I'm going to ask you guys to join me on some level. If not, Happy New Year's, and thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Bye, Jason. Thanks for joining.
That's kick-ass, man. Yeah, I did. I at the last minute messaged a few people to see if they wanted to pop in, figure running up the flagpole and see if anyone saluted. Kick-ass. While we're here, let's talk about what is in the future for the Free Assange Vigil series, for Action for Assange, and what's going on with London. And to kind of open that up, if anyone gives a super chat to this show, all of my super chats from December through the end of our GoFundMe for the London and DC trips will go to that. So if you got a couple of bucks for Slow News Day, then I am going to immediately turn around and put that towards this fundraiser.
Thank you, Steve. Again,
thank you very much to
appreciate
do that.
You don't have to do that, so thank you.
I would not be able to donate otherwise, so...
We wanted to have some goals for Action for Assange and for our vigils. We kind of still need to discuss that amongst ourselves still, but we do have some things that we want to do for you guys, maybe live stream a little bit more frequently when our schedules allow for that to happen. Yeah, we do have a lot of plans, like Steve was saying, a trip to London where Steve and I will be covering the extradition hearing. We will be there live streaming, interviewing important people, talking to other activists who are there. But mainly our job is to be journalists on the ground reporting of what's taking place. And then stateside, Christy and Andrew are going to be involved in the more activist type of thing.
So we've.
And then you guys are also going to be talking about that in greater depth, and may want to hold off talking about that for Lee's show to kind of give him something unique for his show. But if you want to touch on that as well.
Yeah, so we are planning actions February 24th through the 29th. That will be the first week of the extradition hearing. Andrew and myself will be in DC. And yeah, we're going to be releasing a little bit more on what those actions look like and how to get involved. We're also hoping to do interviews, and we're hoping to have some streaming and kind of, we're just really hoping to keep the Action for Assange channel very active between London and DC that whole week. As much as we're all possible. Obviously, we're going to be in different time zones. And I think we will try to figure out how we're going to do our normal Wednesday night show. But if we can stream together as much as possible and talk to each other, we will. Both sides are going to be doing lots of activities. And yeah, Andrew and I are going to DC early here in just about a week. And we're going to do an interview on Lee Camp's show. And so once that comes out, we're really going to start unveiling a lot of our plans and kind of have that as our, it's ended up serving as our kickoff to all the things that we've been organizing in the background here.
Yeah, so make sure if you can make it to DC, please make it out there. You'll be able to meet Christy and Andrew, and more importantly, work with them to bring awareness and really be a vocal advocate for Julian and for WikiLeaks in the U.S. And then Steve and I are going to be doing a lot of stuff. We're going to start studying up pretty heavily next to know the nature of how this whole system works in the UK. We know it pretty well, more than the average person, of course, and more than the average maybe journalist, I would even say. But of course, we want to know this stuff to a T so we could kind of tell you guys if this is like a normal thing that's taking place, so we could point out if there are some sort of weird things that are happening, which based off of what's happened in the past, we could probably expect that to happen. But we are upfront about this. Steve and I are, of course, absolutely against this extradition. We support Julian Assange. That is our perspective, but we are still able to report fairly on the facts. And then at the end of each day, I think we plan on also doing like a live stream, just recapping what happened that day and talk about some of the things that we weren't able to talk about and answer people's questions. We'll probably do that at the hotel or wherever. And then also during the day when this is all taking place, of course, we'll be streaming everything for you guys, but we probably won't be able to answer any questions during that time. And then, of course, we'll be streaming with Andrew and Christy if we can. And I know you guys are going to do your own live streams as well. So we'll coordinate that to make sure we're not doing it at the same time. But essentially that entire week, like Christy was saying, we hope to have information for you guys pretty much 24/7.
Yeah, I wanted to point out one of the reasons we decided to change up our original plan was for all of us to go to London. Was Andrew and I feel really passionately about that and all of us do, that we really do need to rally the U.S. side of this. While everything, the action, the trial, all the court stuff is happening in London and in the UK and Europe right now, the U.S. is the one that's behind this. And so we feel that we have this opportunity to really rally Julian's supporters on the U.S. side. And if you can't make it to D.C., please hold actions in your own space, your own towns that week. But it is really important that we start now in the U.S. to show our government and our politicians, especially during this next year when we're in an election cycle, and the primary season is going to be kicking off in February, that this is an important issue to us, and we're not going to stop talking about it. It's been really a media blackout as far as this question has not come up on the debate stage. Tulsi Gabbard is the only one who's spoken out in support, at least among the Democrats. There have been other third-party candidates that we've had on our show as well to talk about Julian, but we don't want this story to get lost in the U.S. media because we have the impeachment, we have primary season. Our media is really good at drowning out important things happening as are discussing with the WikiLeaks drops. So that being said, we feel it is important to really start driving forward with the U.S.'s support and really getting a chance to gather people in the same space. And what better place to do that than in Washington, D.C., where, I mean, the head of our government is, and we can really hopefully do peaceful protests and actions at some really key spots to make a point of how the U.S. citizens feel about this extradition process.
Yeah, and you know what? It would be great if the mainstream media were to cover what you guys are doing. We of course know that's not going to happen. I believe RT, highly likely that RT will be able to capture that, of course, because they are in DC, and then also you're promoting this on the show. So I think we could be almost sure that they will be talking about your actions there. But also later in the year, maybe the four of us would like to be able to meet all at once and do a live vigil if that's possible. We'd probably have to go to like Colorado or somewhere
that's the halfway point for that. And
good state for you too, Steve, because I know this London trip, you know, we were curious about how some things are going to work out, but it's a good place to go. I actually was just in Denver. I like or we could go wherever in Colorado, but the point is close. And then also Denver for Assange is there, so we know that there is people who would be interested in joining us for this. So we'll have to make it as well.
I think also as we get closer to the DNC convention that's in July in Wisconsin, I think that would be a good opportunity to stage some protests and maybe potentially get the four of us together too. There's going to be a lot of opportunities in the U.S., I think, for the four of us to try to convene and create more action and get to meet each other and do live vigils. And I know Andrew's really passionate about getting some town halls going too. So I wanted him to jump on today.
I'm going to look around here. If not in the mountains, then definitely in Santa Cruz for a place to host, for at least on this end, to have a live audience for the Free Assange vigils.
That would be awesome.
That would be so cool. Yeah.
And I
you know what?
My fucking microphone is where I've been getting yelled at in the chat the whole time that they can't fucking hear me. And,
everyone's been saying they can't hear you.
I hope it's better now. I wanted to make a point about advocacy journalists and why I think that that's bullshit, and that we don't have to consider ourselves advocacy journalists, because in order to become one, the way that it's presented, you have to deliver a set of facts that runs counter to what the establishment narrative is. And that is what makes you an advocate journalist. It is that you're going around the smears. You know, yes, we are passionate about Julian Assange's release from Belmarsh prison because we're human fucking beings. But the journalism that we're doing is less advocate and more accurate.
Right, yeah, I think
True.
to make a point about that, I know Glenn Greenwald said there's nothing wrong with saying that this is my point of view and being upfront about that and saying this is my perspective and this will help you better understand how and why I report this way. And he criticized people like the New York Times who pretend that they don't have perspectives, which is impossible. Everybody has a perspective, who pretend that they don't have any sort of stake in something or outlook on whatever topic that's at hand. Being dishonest about that is a worse thing, because we know, of course, that they are pushing a neoliberal perspective. But no, I think you're right. I think that advocacy journalism, I think it's a bullshit term that's used. But I don't think there's anything wrong with journalists having perspectives. And
well, no, I mean, every journalist has a perspective. There's no, like, if people think there's unbiased reporting, they're fucking selling themselves fiction. It's just more often than not, what is reported is what management wants to be reported, or what the sponsors want to be reported, or what intelligence communities want to be reported, and that's that's what makes presenting an accurate set of facts advocacy, as opposed to, you know, regular real journalism.
Yeah, and I think they use that term advocacy to also, they attach that label. When I say they, I'm talking about people who are proponents of mainstream media outlets over independent media outlets. They attach advocacy journalism to independent media to discredit it.
That's my impression too, that it is used as a way to diminish the power of these people that are doing the reporting, and to really attempt to skew their reports as well.
Right.
I have no idea.
I agree.
Are we here? I don't know.
Yeah, we're here.
I keep trying to fix the sound and further fuck it up each time I do it. I should just give up. What I'll do is, there's a clean recording going on, and I will release that after we're done. Fuck, dude, I'm not happy with audio issues.
Somebody asked, where is Assange right now? I don't know if, I'm guessing it's a new person here. He is in Belmarsh prison right now, on remand, which means that he is essentially just being held there because until his court hearing, and because he has a court hearing, they're doing this. They argued that they wanted to do this because they said that he was a potential flight risk, which is ridiculous.
I'm not sure if he even, he was granted a passport, but I don't know if he has that passport since he was arrested. So I'm not really sure if he could logistically fly anywhere on his own right now.
I think they said that, or because of a history of absconding is what it was, because he did
history is because he went into the embassy. The history of absconding
to file the fucking warrant and serve it.
Right. So, okay. Let's pull back to this. So, Julian Assange left Sweden in 2010 after 5 weeks after this investigation began. He asked permission to go to London from the main prosecutor at the time, was granted that permission, and then went to London because they were preparing, WikiLeaks was preparing the Iraq war logs, I believe, at the time. So he needed to go back to London. That's, I believe, where he was, the operations were based out of. And then, the European arrest warrant. Yeah, and so the European arrest warrant was then put in place, and it had a red alert, which is what they use for terrorists. And this was done by the prosecutor who gave him permission to leave Sweden. He did not flee Sweden. He eventually was arrested and put into prison for 10 days in the UK in December of 2010. After he was released on bail, there was a lengthy court process. He was under house arrest. They went through the appeals process. And as the appeals process failed to redeem, because his argument was he was not going to go back to Sweden because he feared of being extradited to the U.S. He saw the writing on the wall that Sweden was being used to obtain him into the U.S.'s hands. The other fear of absconding is that he went into the Ecuadorian embassy in 2012, which was his right to seek political asylum. So when the courts talk about that he's a flight risk or that he is going to run away, they negate to acknowledge his right of seeking asylum and how it was done correctly. He should have never had to have been trapped in the embassy. He should have had the ability to then travel to Ecuador, which the UK did not recognize that. They said he would be arrested even if he went on the roof of the building. He could not go outside. He was literally trapped in that embassy for nearly 7 years. So we talk about why he's in jail, why he's still in prison. We have reports from Julian Assange on Christmas Eve that he is, in fact, confirming he's, in fact, in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day, and he is being sedated. And he said he is dying in prison. Why are we sedating a prisoner who shouldn't be a prisoner to begin with, having any sort of charge or sentence, and is awaiting extradition hearing? He's had enough problems getting access to his lawyers, getting access to documents, getting his mail on time. He's isolated 23 hours a day. Why are we sedating him? Why is the UK sedating him? Like, if none of these things equals torture at the hands of the US empire, you're not opening your eyes, because this is not, we are above the rule of law now. Nothing is about justice. There's not going to be justice served in this process. And there hasn't been thus far.
No, there hasn't, and that's just one example. There are several, which is, I mean, which is why we're taking these actions in February and going to cover this extradition hearing and fully familiarizing ourselves with that process, how it's been used in the past in similar cases, so there's some sort of like baseline to maybe not compare to specific cases, but to know when things are not going appropriately and the rule of law is being broken and just blatantly disregarded, because that has happened multiple times in this case. And again, this could take several years. It could go either way, really. At times, I think that it won't take years, because I think they want him here in the U.S. and they really want to. They just want him here, I think. And I don't think they want to drag this out very long. However, he does have an opportunity to appeal. And that takes some time. In appeal, if he is, if the U.S. is granted extradition. I'm not even sure how they would rule that, what the ruling is. I guess it would be that the U.S., does have access to him and they're given the extradition. But he will be able to appeal that, and that could take a very long time.
Yeah, and I do believe if the courts do rule in his favor and try to throw out the extradition request, the U.S. can appeal as well. So that really what's going to happen in February, and as we know, it could last up to 4 weeks, and those weeks may not be consecutive weeks. This could be a very long process for Assange.
Right.
Which is why we need to continue to raise this issue at every possible opportunity. It's why we need to point out that, WikiLeaks just came out with their 4th drop on the OPCW reports, that they're still active, that Chelsea Manning now is, I think, up over $180,000 in fines. It's just, this is... As the concept and the notion of what the rule of law is further erodes in front of the eyes of the public, that's going to demand a response. And it's up to activists to spread the information, make people aware, and help determine what that response will be, because the reaction that the people in power want is a violent one. They want an excuse to just lay waste to all of the people who are rabble-rousing. And if we don't give them that, if we can find a way to opt out through not participating in the fucking, I don't know, I guess the corporate manipulations that seem to drive a lot of what we do and how we think. If we can make our communities a little bit more sustainable, if we can stop depending on food from outside sources, on fucking stop depending on large government, those are all steps we can advocate and take. I'm over time in my audio shit, so I'm gonna go ahead and wrap. I want to thank you guys very much, and Jason Burmis. We are doing a New Year's Day Free Assange Vigil. Please stop by for that. And yeah, in the meantime, good luck to us all.